Welcome to The Test is History, a systematic study into cricket's most controversial confrontations. This episode focuses on test number 222, the third test of the 1932-33 Ashes series between Australia and England, which took place at the Adelaide Oval from the 13th to the 19th of January 1933. A frail-looking pit boy called Harold emerged from a local coal mine to debut for his village team of Nottinghamshire. Wearing sand shoes as he had no boots, Harold sent down 20 overs despite working in the mine the previous night. His nose began to bleed, but although his teammates urged him to leave the field, Harold kept bowling. Alone in the dark and perilous mine, he would bowl imaginary balls. Cricket was his reason for living, and nothing would stop him playing in a real match. Despite the blood staining his shirt, he managed to take out one batsman's middle stump. The next delivery shattered the new batsman's wicket. Then he hit the incoming batsman's off stump for his first hat-trick. Another resident of Nottinghamshire was Nottinghamshire and England cricketer Joe Hardstaff, who became aware of Harold's ability as a fast bowler. A trial was arranged with Nottinghamshire. Harold was just 5'4", but he impressed enough in the nets to be offered a contract with the county. Harold came under the tutelage of Jim Ironmonger, who helped him develop a smooth run-up, balance and follow-through. In 1924, still in his teens, and a little taller, but frail from a near-fatal brush with smallpox, Harold Larwood made his debut against Northants at Trent Bridge. He took the wicket of England international Valence Job. Within 2 years, Larwood was bowling for England against Australia at Lord's. By 1928, Larwood was opening the bowling for England as the West Indies entered the arena of Test cricket. Making his debut in the England batting order for that match was the Indian-born, Winchester and Oxford-educated Surrey amateur, Douglas Jardine. Rather appropriately, Jardine faced a pacey attack comprising of Leary Constantine, George Francis and Herman Griffith, who was to take his wicket. With Larwood the spearhead of England's fast bowlers, pace was becoming the popular mode of attack for teams in the fields. The following winter, Jardine and Larwood were both members of the English team that retained the Ashes in Australia. Jardine endured hostility from the Australian crowds for his perceived haughty demeanour, slow batting, and in particular his insistence on wearing the harlequin cap. But this did not prevent him enjoying a successful tour with the bat. Despite the English victory, the young Australian batsman, Don Bradman, had emerged as a genuine threat to English dominance. By the 1930 Ashes series in England, Bradman was rampant. Australia won the series 2-1 and regained the Ashes. Jardine was absent for that summer. Larwood was not, and his inability to curtail Bradman appeared to have cost him his international career. But during the final test at the Oval, as Bradman made his way to another double century on a rain-affected pitch, England stumbled upon a potential strategy. A number of observers, including the England wicketkeeper George Duckworth and Douglas Jardine's captain at Surrey, Percy Fender, noted that Bradman appeared to be flinching when faced with a rising ball from Larwood. Despite missing much of the 1930 summer due to business commitments, Jardine also came to the view that a weakness in Bradman's technique had been unearthed. Watching footage of Bradman at the Oval, Jardine was said to exclaim, "I've got it, he's yellow." Jardine's appointment as England's captain in 1931 was received with mixed reactions. Jardine's batting earned him a place in the team, but he was inexperienced in captaincy. His difficulties with Australian crowds contrasted with his predecessor, Percy Chapman, who was famously clubbable and a popular touring captain. However, he was considered a good judge of player with extensive knowledge of the game and its history. He was also viewed as more likely to instill discipline into his side than the departing Chapman. Perhaps his old cricket master at Winchester, the former England spinner Rockley Wilson, provided the most astute observation when opining that the appointment of the steely Jardine would probably win us the Ashes but lose us a Dominion. Jardine led England against New Zealand in their first Test matches in England in 1931. The following summer he was skipper as England faced India at Lord's for their debut in Test cricket. Larwood was picked only once throughout, not even getting onto the field against New Zealand at Old Trafford in a match obliterated by the weather. So, as England prepared for the 1932-33 Ashes tour, Jardine met with Nottinghamshire captain Arthur Carr at the Piccadilly Grill Rooms when Notts were playing in London. Carr took along his pace bowlers Harold Larwood and Bill Voce. The subject of the perceived weakness of Bradman was a point of discussion. For the previous couple of seasons, Bill Voce had practised bowling fast leg-sided deliveries to a leg-sided field. It was mooted that this leg theory bowling could restrict Bradman's run scoring. Voce followed the likes of George Hurst and Frank Foster in a line of left-arm bowlers who had deployed leg theory. Foster himself had enjoyed great success in the Ashes series of 1911-12 using the leg trap, and his advice on leg field placings was sought by Jardine. Then Larwood was asked if he could consistently bowl onto the leg stump, making the ball veer up to the body so that Bradman would be forced to play his shots to leg. Larwood, who had previously struggled in Australia when the ball wasn't swinging but was famed for his accuracy as well as his pace, said he could. With Jardine placing a cordon of fielders on the leg side, they believed they had hit upon a wicket-taking ploy. Larwood, who had resigned himself to being omitted from the Ashes tour, now found he had a route back into Test cricket. Under the captaincy of Arthur Carr, Larwood and Voce went on to deploy fast leg theory in the 1932 County Championship with mixed success, but it had become clear that Douglas Jardine and his team manager Plum Warner would take a cluster of fast bowlers to Australia. Larwood and Voce would be joined by Middlesex amateur Gobby Allen and the giant Yorkshireman Bill Bowes, despite his hostile use of leg theory to Jack Hobbs in the Surrey v Yorkshire match at the Oval being previously criticised by Plum Warner. They were joined in the bowling attack by veteran seamer Maurice Tate of Sussex, Yorkshire slow left armer Headley Verity and Derbyshire leg spinner Tommy Mitchell, like Larwood and Voce, a minor. Surrey amateur, the all-rounder Freddie Brown, also bowled leg break. Jardine and his vice-captain Bob Wyatt of Warwickshire were part of a very strong batting lineup, which included two of England's greatest batsmen, the well-established Yorkshire opener Herbert Sutcliffe and the prolific Wally Hammond of Gloucestershire, who could also bowl. Also in the touring party were two fine left-handers, Maurice Leyland of Yorkshire and Eddie Painter of Lancashire, a late replacement for Duleep Singhi, forced to withdraw through ill health. The Nawab of Pataudi, Oxford-educated like Jardine, completed the list of batsmen on tour. Wicketkeeper Les Ames of Kent, also an accomplished batsman, was deputised by the experienced George Duckworth of Lancashire. Jardine avoided tactical talk and generally preferred his own company on the voyage to Australia. Larwood recalled often seeing him alone in a corner, reading Chaucer. 2 weeks before they arrived, the England team began training in earnest, with 6 hours of deck games during the day and a run around the deck before dinner. They arrived at Fremantle physically fit. Jardine re-established his fraught relationship with Australia by snubbing a journalist who requested he released details of team selection to meet newspaper deadlines. Things didn't improve when England were 20 minutes late onto the pitch for their first match, and a story was put about that Jardine had chosen to go shopping instead. Don Bradman's build-up to the Ashes series had included a tour across America and Canada in 1932, travelling 6,000 miles in 10 weeks, playing low-standard cricket, including matches against teams comprising of Hollywood stars. Although Bradman and his wife Jessie had enjoyed the opportunity to see America, the strenuous nature of the tour had left Bradman off colour. Upon his return to Australia, Bradman had signed a contract to write for a newspaper, but to his astonishment, the Australian Board of Control refused Bradman's permission to continue to write while playing in the test matches. Given that Bradman intended to honour his contract, it appeared he might be out of test cricket. Eventually, the newspaper took the decision out of Bradman's hands and agreed to forego his writings for the summer, requesting that he played cricket instead. In the meantime, Bradman ventured across Australia to play the tourists in a non-test match at Perth. The 5-day train journey gave him little insight into the English tactics, as Larwood, Voce and Bowes were wisely rested. Instead, Bradman had to spend 2 long days in the field, bowling 19 overs, before struggling against Headley Verity on a sticky wicket. It wasn't until the 5th match of the tour that the England pace bowling attack of Larwood, Voce and Bowes all featured in a match. At Melbourne, against an Australian 11 containing Bradman, Bob Wyatt, who stood in for Jardine as the tourists' captain, deployed leg theory tactics successfully, while Jardine was away on a fishing trip. Larwood took Bradman's wicket twice. In the Melbourne Star, former Australian international Stork Hendry condemned Jardine for being absent to face the criticism, following what he saw as Larwood's attempts to decapitate Don Bradman and Bill Woodfull. There was one more match at Sydney, where Larwood was withdrawn, but under the captaincy of Jardine, Voce bowled leg theory and took 5 wickets, including Bradman's, to defeat New South Wales by an innings. 3 days later, the first test began, but Bradman was absent. The ill health he had been suffering through the strain of cricket, travel and argument had led to a medical order to rest completely. The Sydney Test went to England. Sutcliffe, Hammond and Pataudie's centuries nullified the gallant efforts of Australia's Stan McCabe, whose 187 not out in the face of the England's short-pitched bowling would be remembered as one of the most heroic displays of hooking in the history of the game. But it was Larwood's contribution of 10 wickets which ultimately decided the match, and in the aftermath of the test, a new word to describe Larwood's bowling had been coined: bodyline. Bradman returned for the second test at Melbourne, but was bowled first ball, playing a ball by Bill Bowes onto his stumps. However, a doughty innings by Jack Fingleton gave Australia a first innings lead. Then Bradman hit a second innings century to set England a difficult target which they were unable to reach. Leg spinner Bill O'Reilly announced himself on the international scene with 10 wickets. The 6'2" tall O'Reilly was able to grip the ball with his enormous right hand and release it at fast medium pace, extracting bounce and turn off hard pitches. He could bowl a variety of leg breaks, top spinners and googlies, and possessed a hot-blooded temper, mitigated by sharp intelligence and humour. A schoolmaster by trade, Tiger O'Reilly, as he was known, became the greatest spinner of his generation, and until the emergence of Shane Warne, widely considered as the greatest of all time. According to the Australian press, Bodyline had been beaten. Former Australian captain Monty Noble summed it up in his newspaper column with the headline, "Shock attack will be ineffective." And so on to the third test at Adelaide Oval, considered one of the most beautiful cricket grounds in the world, with the spires of St. Peter's Cathedral overlooking the skyline. The atmosphere the match would be played in ill-fitted the majesty of the scene. After being irritated by the behaviour of some youthful spectators at an England practice, Jardine again showed little concern for diplomatic niceties by banning the public from watching England in the nets on the day before the match. As usual, the England skipper refused to announce his final 11 until the coin toss. The position of the Nawab of Pataudie, one of the batsmen who had struggled against O'Reilly, was in jeopardy. Pataudie had fallen out with Jardine over the bodyline tactics and would leave the tour early. the England touring party gathered in the dressing room on the morning of the match to discover whether they had been selected. Their Australian opponents lined up as follows. Jack Fingleton of New South Wales opened with skipper Bill Woodfull. Don Bradman batted at his familiar position of number 3, followed by Stan McCabe at 4. The returning Bill Ponsford, replacing O'Brien, moved from his regular position as an opener down the order to bat at 5. South Australia's Vic Richardson came in at 6. Wicketkeeper Bert Oldfield was in at 7. Famous leg spinner Clarry Grimmett batted at 8, followed by pace bowler Tim Wall at 9. Another fantastic leg spinner, Bill O'Reilly, was at 10, and veteran left-arm medium pacer Bert Ironmonger made up the tail. And so Jardine announced the England team. He selected himself to face the new ball, along with senior professional Herbert Sutcliffe. Wally Hammond was in at 3, followed by wicketkeeper Les Ames at 4, the left-handed Maurice Leyland at 5, and vice-captain Bob Wyatt at 6. Lancashire's Eddie Painter, replacing Pataudi, would bat at 7. At 8, the amateur fast bowler, Gobby Allen, who refused to bowl leg theory. Batting at 9, Headley Verity's spin was preferred to the pace of his Yorkshire teammate Bill Bowes, with Voce and Larwood at 10 and 11, providing the bodyline threat. A record crowd of 39,401 gave Bill Woodfull a warm reception as he met his opposite number, the capless Jardine, for the coin toss. Jardine called correctly and England batted first. Although there had been some rain the previous day, the weather was perfect. However, a cold spring had left the pitch devoid of grass and perfect for fast bowling. The ball was kicking, and with the score on 4, Jardine had his leg stump removed by Australia's paceman Tim Wall. Wally Hammond did not last long either, being caught by Oldfield off the bowling of Wall with the score on 16. Wall was also involved in the dismissal of Sutcliffe, catching him brilliantly at short leg off the bowling of O'Reilly, after batting 3/4 of an hour for just 9 runs. A similarly cautious approach did not help Les Ames, who was bowled by a quicker ball from Bert Ironmonger for 3. At lunch, England found themselves in trouble on 37 for 4. After lunch, Maurice Leyland and Bob Wyatt recovered England's position with a 5th wicket stand of 156. Leyland in particular attacked the bowling, hooking Wall and playing some glorious drives. He reached his 50 off 125 balls with 8 fours. Wyatt also reached 50 with 2 4s and 2 6s. Leyland then passed 1,000 runs in Test cricket, but tension was already showing between the sides, with Leyland accusing Bert Ironmonger of smearing resin on the ball. When Ironmonger revealed his empty pocket, Leyland apologised. Leyland was finally dismissed, bowled by O'Reilly for 83, having batted for 2 hours, scoring 13 fours on the way. Wyatt went 10 runs later, caught by Richardson off Grimmett for 78. Eddie Painter was joined by Gobby Allen, who looked solid until Grimmett trapped him LBW for 15, leaving Headley Verity to play out the first day with Painter. England were 236 for 7, with Painter on 25 and Verity on 5. The second day began with another record crowd, this time of 50,952, cramming into the ground with the hope of seeing Bradman bat. Painter was almost immediately run out. Fortunately for England, he was saved by an inaccurate return from Fingleton. Painter then settled down and the quick-footed Lancastrian began playing some glorious cover drives off Grimmett. He passed his half-century to achieve what was then a career best in Test matches. It vindicated the decision to select him ahead of Pataudi. It had been felt that the left-hander would be better suited to countering the threat of Bill O'Reilly. Verity survived a chance to O'Reilly at second slip, and by lunch, England had reached 315 without further loss. After lunch, the valuable stand of 96 came to an end. Painter attempted to hook a short ball from Wall, but instead found the grateful hands of Fingleton. Bill Voce scored 8 before being bowled by Wall. Then Verity, who had survived a run-out and offered a chance to McCabe at slip, finally fell to a catch by Richardson off Wall to be last man out for 45. England were all out for 341. Tim Wall had taken 5 for 72. In a normal test, this determined effort might be considered as the most noteworthy display of fast bowling that the match would provide. But in Adelaide in 1933, Tim Wall's excellent figures would become a mere footnote. At 3:25 in the afternoon, Australia went into bat, with Jack Fingleton and Bill Woodfull opening the innings. Harold Larwood opened the bowling for England. On top of the Giffin stand, the flags blew away from the city, indicating the wind was at Larwood's back. Larwood lifted a pinch of snuff between his fingers and took a sniff before running in. The crowd fell silent as Larwood completed his first over. Bowling from the other end, Gubby Allen made the perfect start. Off his third ball, Fingleton was caught behind by Ames to bring Bradman to the crease. Woodfull faced Larwood to an orthodox offside field. Off the final ball of his second over, a ball just short of a length dealt Woodfull a nasty blow over the heart. Woodfull dropped his bat, doubled up in pain and staggered away from the stumps, clutching his chest. The crowd roared their indignation and the booing lasted 3 whole minutes. Jardine's response was to pat Larwood on the back and, in earshot of Bradman at the non-striker's end, call out the words, "Well bowled, Harold." When Larwood returned for his third over, Jardine halted him mid-stride, clapped his hands and motioned the field over to the leg side. Jardine and Sutcliffe fielded at the leg, Allen was positioned at silly short leg and Voce at deep backward point. Jardine and Larwood would both claim the other had decided on the fielding change, but whoever thought of it, the crowd let their feelings be known, jeering and counting out Larwood as he began each delivery. An Australian selector would later describe it as the most unsportsmanlike act ever witnessed on an Australian cricket field. But the tactic was working. Larwood snared Bradman, who fell to the trap and was caught by Allen for just 8. McCabe was also caught on the leg side by Jardine off Larwood to leave Australia on 34 for 3. Bill Ponsford joined his long-standing opening partner, Woodfull, at the crease, and the two men endured something of a barrage. Ponsford was almost caught at slip by Hammond when on 3. Woodfull was hit several more times by short-pitched balls, but helped his team past 50. He had laboured to 22 when he was bowled, playing onto his stumps to the orthodox fast bowling of Allen. At the end of Woodfull's innings, England's managers, Plum Warner and Richard Pallaret, visited the Australian dressing room to offer their sympathies for the blow he received from Larwood. They found Woodfull wincing on the massage table. Woodfull's words were to resonate in the ears of Plum Warner. "I don't want to see you, Mr. Warner. There are 2 teams out there. One is trying to play cricket and the other is not." Victor Richardson joined Bill Ponsford at the crease and they saw out the remainder of the day, taking Australia past 100. England's course was not helped by Bill Voce being off the field due to a damaged ankle. At the close of play, Australia were 109 for 4, with Ponsford on 45 and Richardson on 21. A rest day followed and day 3 began on Monday the 16th of January. However, the gap in proceedings had done little to ease the underlying tension. The Australian Board of Control approached Plum Warner with a request to ensure no more predominantly leg-side fields were set. Warner replied that he had no jurisdiction over Jardine on the field. The Board of Control then began to compose a cable to the MCC in London, Meanwhile, the South Australian board took the threat of trouble seriously enough to have an armed guard placed at the Adelaide Oval. The flames were further fanned by a leaked report of Woodfull's words to Warner appearing in the press that morning. Woodfull initially blamed Fingleton for the leak, who later pointed the finger at Bradman, leading to a lifelong feud between the two men. What could not be disputed was the febrile atmosphere the match was now being played in. Bill Voce had recovered enough to bowl again. Nevertheless, England began with Larwood and Allen. Larwood bowled to a leg side field with Allen at silly leg, Verity at deep fine leg and Jardine at short leg, Sutcliffe at fine leg and Hammond in the deep. Allen continued with an orthodox field. Ponsford passed 50. He had scored 5 fours and faced 117 balls, which included several blows on the body from Larwood. When he reached 54, Ponsford had passed 1,500 runs in Test cricket. Ponsford and Richardson's stand was broken when Richardson fell for 28, playing onto a quick ball from Allen, who was bowling with the wind behind him. Australia's wicket-keeper Bert Oldfield, who had enjoyed a flawless match behind the stumps, joined Ponsford in the middle. Ponsford's offside strokes forced Jardine to change the field, and the duo saw Australia to the luncheon interval. Shortly after lunch, Ames seemed to miss Oldfield off the bowling of Hammond. Then Ponsford's fine innings came to an end, as he was bowled round his legs by Bill Voce. His 85 had lasted 216 minutes and included 8 boundaries. Clary Grimmitt joined Oldfield at the crease, but fell for 10 by a magnificent catch in the slips from Voce off the bowling of Allen. Tim Wall was the next man in. Bert Oldfield had reached 41 not out and the score was 218 for 7. The Australian wicketkeeper had become something of a thorn in England's side. Larwood was bowling to an orthodox field. He pitched the ball short on the off stump. Oldfield went to hook it and spun round to complete the stroke when the ball hit him on the temple. The Australian captain Woodfull ran onto the pitch to help his teammate. Larwood immediately apologised and Oldfield assured the England bowler that it was not his fault. The angry crowd did not share Oldfield's view. When the wicket-keeper arrived in hospital, an X-ray would reveal a fractured skull. O'Reilly replaced the stricken Oldfield, but by now the atmosphere from the outraged crowd was electric. The authorities' reaction was to position mounted police inside the boundary, with some reports suggesting that they were armed. Larwood was raucously booed as he bowled. England seamer Maurice Tate, not selected and watching from the enclosure, took sanctuary in the England's dressing room, saying, "I'm getting out of here, somebody will get killed." O'Reilly later suggested it was lucky for the English team that Oldfield had been hit in the relatively sedate Adelaide rather than Melbourne or Sydney, where he believed Jardine would have faced a lynch mob. But Jardine was not one to shy away from confrontation and positioned himself out in the deep, where he was pelted with orange peel. Larwood quickly bowled O'Reilly, and when Tim Wall was bowled by Hammond to give the Gloucestershire player his 50th wicket in tests, tea was taken. Oldfield was obviously unable to resume, so the Australian innings was over for 222, an innings lead of 119 for England. After tea, Sutcliffe walked to the wicket with Jardine. The England skipper demonstrated his steeliness, strolling out to bat in his most colourful harlequin cap. Pandemonium ensued, and Jardine endured a torrent of abuse from the crowd. But rather than cowering away, Jardine endured. Instead, Australia, for whom Richardson was standing in as a wicket-keeper, in place of the hospitalised Oldfield, took the early wicket of Sutcliffe, caught by substitute O'Brien off the bowling of Wall. Bob Wyatt was next in for England and initially struggled against O'Reilly. At the other end, Wall almost dismissed Wyatt for 9, with O'Reilly dropping a very hard chance in the slips. Meanwhile, a miss-hit from Jardine off Grimmitt narrowly evaded the fingertips of Fingleton. However, England's captain and vice-captain survived until close of play. Wyatt had played with increasing fluency for his 47, while Jardine was watchful for his 24. After the close of play, the Australian Board of Control met at the ground to frame a protest to the MCC against the bodyline tactics. Bodyline bowling, it claimed, was unsportsmanlike, and unless stopped at once, it is likely to upset friendly relations existing between Australia and England. Play resumed on day 4 to the backdrop of a diplomatic crisis. When Larwood had entered an Adelaide theatre one evening during the test match, a little girl was overheard saying to her mother, "Mummy, he doesn't look like a murderer." Jardine feared that the powers that be at Lord's might not back him, but on the pitch, England's position remained strong. However, Wyatt was to fall to a brilliant catch by Wall at short leg off the bowling of O'Reilly, 1 run short of his 50. An ankle injury to Eddie Painter, who had collided with the fence when fielding, caused England to readjust their batting order. Gobby Allen was promoted to number 4 and joined Jardine at the crease. Allen cut Ironmonger as well as hitting O'Reilly to the leg boundary, but just when he was looking set, he was trapped LBW by Grimmett for 15 to bring Wally Hammond to the middle. Lunch arrived with the score on 130 for 3. After the interval, Jardine finally fell, LBW to Ironmonger for 56. It was a typically watchful captain's innings from Jardine, who had been at the crease for 4¼ hours and borne the brunt of the crowd's hostility. Maurice Leyland entered the fray and took over where he left off in the first innings, hitting 3 fours off Grimmett. Alongside Hammond, he put on 91. Hammond passed his half-century, having scored 8 fours along the way. Then Leyland was dismissed for 42, caught by Wall off Ironmonger when attempting to pull to leg. Ironmonger, who had been amongst the wickets at Melbourne, had become one of Test cricket's oldest debutants at the age of 47. Dainty, as he was known, was a labourer by trade who had lost the forefinger of his left hand. Firing the ball out of his stub, he was very effective on rain-affected wickets. This would be his final series in a short but successful Test career. Hammond was joined by Ames and attempted to play out time, but on the last over of the day, he was bowled by a full toss. To make matters worse, the delivery had come from part-time bowler Don Bradman, the player who had usurped Hammond as the world's leading batsman. England finished the day on 296 for 6, with Les Ames on 18 not out. Overnight rain fell before the start of day 5, but it did not affect the wicket. Les Ames had been joined by Headley Verity, and they batted through the morning session, with Ames passing his 50 on the way, with some fine cover drives. This left England 385 for 6 by lunch. The English lead was becoming unassailable, but after the interval, an O'Reilly googly removed Ames for 69. The partnership between Ames and Verity had been worth 98 runs. Verity, who had also played some fine drives as well as strokes past point, fell almost immediately afterwards for 42. With the injured Eddie Painter at the other end, Harold Larwood hit out, falling to a catch by Bradman off the bowling of Ironmonger. Bill Voce followed suit and was bowled by O'Reilly, ending the England innings on 412 and setting Australia an unthinkable target of 532. Larwood quickly made the unthinkable impossible with 2 early wickets. Fingleton was beaten for pace and was clean bowled without scoring. Then Ponsford attempted to cut a rising ball and was caught by Jardine at backward point. Bradman was the next man in, and he began scoring freely off all the bowling. He reached 50 in 59 balls, including 8 fours. But after hitting Verity for 6, the Yorkshireman dismissed Bradman, caught and bowled for 66. 46 of Bradman's runs had come from boundaries. McCabe, looking to repeat his Sydney heroics, attempted to hook Allen, but only succeeded in finding Maurice Leyland a deep square leg. Australia were 116 for 4. 4 more runs were added, before new batsman Victor Richardson successfully appealed for light. Woodfull was not out 36, while Richardson was still waiting to get off the mark. Despite being in control of the test match, the stigma of being accused of unsportsmanlike play was affecting the English camp. Australian press reports told of dissent amongst the English ranks. At the end of the 5th day, Jardine called a team meeting with 2 points on the agenda. Should leg theory be abandoned, and should he continue as captain? Jardine won his vote of confidence unanimously. Australia's desperate position ensured that a crowd of only 7,000 attended the 6th day. The cricket was played in intense heat, with both Larwood and Allen not being able to get the ball much above the stumps. Despite a leg field being set, Woodfull scored on the onside to Larwood. He completed a courageous half-century, passing 11,000 runs in first-class cricket along the way. After a quiet start, Richardson attempted to hook Larwood, only to find the ball rise, hit his thumb and fall into the hands of Gubby Allen. It brought an end to the 50-run partnership between Woodfull and Richardson and ended the dim hopes that Australia might be able to salvage the match. Grimmett was bowled by Allen for 6. Wall went the same way without scoring, while Larwood did the same to O'Reilly for 5. Ironmonger failed to trouble the scorers when he was bowled by Allen. With Bert Oldfield unable to bat, Australia were effectively all out for a total of 193. England had won the match by 338 runs and taken a vital lead in the Ashes. 5 days after receiving the cable from the Australian Board of Control, the MCC in London issued a response. It read, "We, the Marylebone Cricket Club, deplore your cable. We deprecate your opinion that there has been unsportsmanlike play." The MCC reply finished that if the Australians wished to cancel the remainder of the tour, the MCC would consent, but with great reluctance. The Australian response was to dial down on the threat of cancelling the tour, but maintain that Bodyline was opposed to the spirit of cricket. The series continued. In the 4th test at Brisbane, an heroic innings from Eddie Painter, emerging from his hospital bed after tonsillitis, set up the English win, which secured the Ashes. From another hospital bed in Brisbane, the 23-year-old Australian batsman, Archie Jackson, sent Larwood a telegram of congratulations for his magnificent bowling. Jackson died of tuberculosis on the final day of the Brisbane Test. In the final match at Sydney, the left-arm spin of Headley Verity helped England to another victory. Larwood's contribution of 98 with the bat was as significant as his wickets. In the Australian second innings, Larwood broke down injured. Forced to complete his over against Woodfull, the Australian skipper graciously batted the remaining balls gently back to Larwood. The fast bowler did not receive the same generosity from his own captain. Jardine insisted keeping Larwood on the pitch until Bradman had been dismissed by Verity. Larwood left the pitch a few yards behind Bradman. They exchanged neither a word nor a glance. Larwood had finished the series with 33 wickets at an average of 19.51. Bradman's 396 runs at 56.57 was credible but significantly diminished in comparison to his previous achievements. The injured Larwood returned home to a media circus. His county captain, Arthur Carr, who was a working journalist, was more than happy to keep Bodyline in the public eye, while Larwood's tour contract with the MCC prevented him from going public on the subject. When his tour contract ended, Larwood spoke to the Sunday Express and had a book provocatively titled Bodyline, serialised in the Sunday Dispatch. His defence of leg theory, criticisms of Bradman's cowardice and Woodfull's technique, as well as a condemnation of the behaviour of Australian crowds, created further controversy. Attitudes in England to Bodyline soon began to sour. In 1933, Bodyline was now being practised on the domestic circuit, and by the West Indies touring side, which included the pace bowlers Leary Constantine and Manny Martindale. In fairness to Jardine, when he faced Constantine and Martindale's battery at the Old Trafford Test, he performed admirably, scoring a century. The Australian Board of Control unilaterally banned bodyline bowling, and the MCC was beginning to change its stance. Plum Warner manoeuvred to distance himself from bodyline, which drew the ire of Jardine and Larwood. The MCC verbally agreed not to use bodyline when the Australians toured in 1934, and Jardine issued a statement that he would not play in the subsequent Test series. Larwood suffered an injury-ravaged 1933 season, but was fit by the summer of 1934, and many expected him to play against Australia. But to demonstrate their commitment to not using bodyline, Larwood was approached by Sir Julian Kahn on behalf of the MCC, who informed him that if he were to be considered for selection, he must apologise to the MCC for his bowling on the 1932-33 tour. Larwood was disgusted by the proposal. Clause 2 of his tour contract had clearly stated that he should conform to the directions of the said captain or deputy captain. "I am an Englishman, I will never apologise," was Larwood's response. His Test career was over. Eventually, the laws of cricket restricted the number of fielders behind square on the leg side and the number of bouncers that could be bowled in an over. But Larwood's removal from international cricket only cemented his legacy, and the changing of the laws did not prevent the pace bowling juggernaut gaining traction. An 11-year-old Australian boy called Ray Lindwall, who had seen Larwood play in the first Test at Sydney, became one of the most devastating fast bowlers in history. Many others followed. By the 1970s, the West Indies depended entirely on a pace attack and dominated the cricketing world. As for Larwood, rejected by the England establishment, he emigrated to Australia, where he lived for the final 45 years of his life. He never regretted his refusal to apologise. Perhaps the best eulogy for his bowling comes in the following music hall verse written in the wake of the Bodyline series. "With a prayer and a curse they prepare for the hearse. Undertakers look on with broad grins. Oh, they'd be a lot calmer in Ned Kelly's armour when Larwood, the wrecker, begins."